Hello. When I first heard the news yesterday that Sebastian Vettel and Ferrari have failed to renew their contract for next year and that Vettel will be leaving the team after 2020, I originally found that as a bit of a shame. I was saddened that the dream has not worked out for them, and so far Sebastian has failed to achieve the championship that he's so desperately wanted to achieve with them. That's been his goal. It's been his childhood dreams ever since he watched his hero Michael Schumacher achieve so much with the team, and he wanted to do it himself. It's a shame that unfortunately hasn't happened for them, and that was my initial reaction. I was gutted, but the more I think about it, the more I realise that actually this is probably the right move. Ferrari is not the team that we saw back in the early 2000s with Ross Brawn and Jean Todt and Michael and unlimited testing and crazy budgets and stuff. A lot has changed, and we saw in previous races over the last few years how Sebastian was having to drive the car and in many ways work out the strategy at 100 miles an hour because it just wasn't there. It's been a running joke with Ferrari for so long about how the strategy, something's going on there, and it must have been frustrating. And overall, the big picture there was that, I guess, for Sebastian and for the team themselves, who have sort of invested everything in Charles Leclerc now, it's just not worked out. I wanted to make this video today because the more I think about it, it just seems so clear that the place for Sebastian to go is McLaren. And I'm not even traditionally a McLaren fan. I've never really rooted for them until I guess last year, where they just kind of seemed like the team that have really got themselves together. I guess it took them a few years to really move on from the Ron Dennis era, which defined McLaren for so long. But they're in a good place now. And I think the fact that Ferrari haven't kept Vettel with the upcoming regulation changes as well is kind of crazy, because he's an engineer at heart. He's such a technical racer. We see him every race checking out the other cars from a distance, and he reads the rule book line by line because he's a techie guy, and he's an asset to a team. Why they would throw that away, I guess, is I don't know. I guess there's more going on there than we know. But coming back to the McLaren argument, here are my sort of key points for why I think that this is really a dream pairing. I think McLaren have really sort of figured it out now, and after years of restructuring internally, McLaren is capable of making the jump from the midfield to the top again. If Seb was to go to McLaren, he would of course be a number one driver, at least for the next few years, whilst Lando Norris continues to progress and develop. And I like Lando. I think he's a great driver and will go on to get some good results. It's just, whilst he's young and new to Formula One, there's so much technical stuff that needs to be picked up. There's so many regulations and things to understand that, of course, Seb has at the moment, that he could bring to McLaren and help bring them to the top as their number one driver. Linking to this, McLaren is historically a very technically innovative and adaptable team, which should align well with Sebastian's approach to racing. And of course, a huge factor to consider is that McLaren will have Mercedes engines from 2021, which is huge. That could really mean a promising future for the team, especially with the rumours of Renault and Honda and maybe even Mercedes as a factory team in the near future pulling out of the sport, as things like the economy and the global car market with combustion engines slowly being phased out in favour of electric. There's so much going on there that actually the future with McLaren and Mercedes looks really good. And perhaps this is just a small observation, but I could really see Zak Brown and Sebastian getting on really well together with a common goal of getting the team back to winning races and hopefully championships. And I guess just coming back to that Ferrari bubble that he's been in for the last 6 years, I think it'll be really healthy for Seb to, I guess, get out of that. And with a team like McLaren, he'll still have media duties, but it won't be as intense as you get with Ferrari and the Italian media. And for someone like Sebastian, he loves his history. He loves his Formula One history, and McLaren is a team that there's so much success there in the past that I feel like if Sebastian really put his heart into it, he could really be happy at McLaren. And my final point, which I haven't really seen mentioned online yet, is that perhaps Mercedes themselves, as a company, will push for Sebastian to go to McLaren because he's a German driver. He can represent their brand really well. And if Carlos Sainz does leave to replace him at Ferrari, they'll want McLaren to be in good hands. And with Sebastian, it certainly will be. So there you go. Those are my key points for why I see it as a winning combination, literally a winning combination for why Sebastian and McLaren should come together for 2021 and have a good combination for the future to win races and hopefully championships. Ultimately, I'm gutted that it's not worked out for Sebastian with Ferrari and he didn't achieve his dream. But I guess the lesson there is you can't repeat the past. With what Michael Schumacher did, it was amazing. But for Sebastian, you've got to lead your own way. And ultimately, if he wants to be winning races and he wants to be at the front of the grid and get that elusive 5th championship, McLaren's the place to do it. So there you go. My final point, I guess, had also been, if I was Carlos Sainz, I wouldn't move to Ferrari. Why would you? I think there's such a promising future. Like I've just mentioned, with everything with McLaren, they're on their way up. And if he goes to Ferrari, he's not going to be a number 1 driver. He's going to be number 2 to Charles. And that's just risky. It depends. Carlos needs to decide what he really wants. Does he want to be a champion? Because I don't know. So thank you very much for watching. Of course, please comment below or tweet me or whatever if you agree or disagree with me. Because I love Formula One and I'm gutted that the season hasn't kicked off yet, but of course I guess with the virus and everything, safety comes first, and that's the way it should be. So for now, yeah, thanks very much for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.